Maya Chen adjusted the collar of her civilian clothes for the 100th time, her enhanced cybernetic fingers betraying none of the nervous energy coursing through her system. The parking lot of Jefferson High School stretched before her like an alien landscape, filled with teenagers who had never seen real combat, never felt the weight of a pulse rifle, never watched friends die in the mud of distant worlds. At 17, Maya looked like any other student preparing for senior year. The military surgeons had done excellent work reconstructing her appearance after the Kepler incident. The scars were hidden beneath synthetic skin, the cybernetic eye looked perfectly normal, and the reinforced bone structure was undetectable to casual observation. Only the slight metallic glint in her left pupil and the way she moved with predatory grace gave any hint of what she truly was. She had been humanity's youngest decorated war hero, a child soldier who had volunteered at 14 when the Zephyrian Collective launched their surprise attack on the outer colonies. 3 years of brutal warfare across 12 different worlds had shaped her into something harder than diamond, and more dangerous than a plasma cannon. She had led squads of grown men into impossible battles and brought them home alive. She had single-handedly held the line at Meridian Station while civilians evacuated. She had killed more aliens than most soldiers saw in their entire careers. Now the war was over. Humanity had won through sheer stubborn determination and tactical brilliance, and Maya was supposed to be normal again. The government psychiatrists insisted that integration into civilian life was essential for her psychological health. They claimed that attending high school would help her reconnect with her humanity and learn to live in a world without constant warfare. Maya thought they were idiots, but orders were orders. The school building loomed ahead, a structure that could never withstand orbital bombardment or plasma artillery. Students streamed through the entrance laughing and chatting about trivial concerns. Maya analyzed threat patterns automatically, noting escape routes, defensive positions, and potential weapons. The habits of war died hard. Her enhanced hearing picked up fragments of conversation that made her jaw clench. Students complaining about homework deadlines, relationship drama, and social media followers. These children had no idea how fragile their peaceful world really was. How many people had died to preserve their right to worry about such meaningless things. Principal Roberts, a soft man with kind eyes, had personally welcomed Maya during orientation. He knew nothing of her real background, only that she was a transfer student whose family had moved frequently due to military service. The cover story was simple and boring, exactly as designed. Maya's first class was advanced physics taught by Mrs. Patterson, an elderly woman who clearly loved her subject. As Maya entered the classroom, conversations died down. New students always attracted attention, but Maya felt the weight of a dozen stares analyzing her appearance, her clothes, her potential social value. She chose a seat in the back corner, positioning herself with clear lines of sight to all entrances and exits. The desk felt ridiculously flimsy compared to the reinforced bunkers she was accustomed to. Around her, students pulled out tablets and notebooks, preparing for a lesson that would cover material Maya had mastered years ago during her military technical training. A girl with perfectly styled blonde hair turned in her seat, flashing a smile that Maya recognized as calculated rather than genuine. "I'm Jessica. Are you new? I haven't seen you around before." Maya nodded once. "Transfer student. Where did you transfer from?" Jessica's voice carried that particular tone Maya remembered from intelligence briefings about interrogation techniques. The girl was fishing for information to determine Maya's social standing and potential usefulness. "Military base overseas," Maya replied, keeping her voice neutral. It was technically true, though the base had been on Titan and the overseas part involved several light years of distance. Jessica's eyes lit up with interest. "That's so cool. What was it like living on a military base? Did you meet any soldiers? Are they as tough as they look in the movies?" Maya's enhanced vision caught micro-expressions that revealed Jessica's motivations. The girl saw potential social currency in befriending someone with an exotic background. Maya had dealt with politicians and diplomats who used similar tactics, though usually with higher stakes than high school social dynamics. It was quiet, Maya said, which was the opposite of truth but seemed safest. Mrs. Patterson began the lesson on quantum mechanics, covering concepts that Maya had applied practically while calibrating weapons systems on deep space cruisers. She found herself analyzing the teacher's explanation, noting several oversimplifications and one outright error in the mathematical formulation. In combat, such mistakes would have meant mission failure and dead soldiers. During the break between classes, Maya observed the complex social ecosystem around her. Students moved in distinct groups with invisible but clearly defined territories and hierarchies. The athletes clustered near the windows, their confidence born from physical competition rather than life or death struggles. The academic achievers gathered around the front desks, their stress focused on grades rather than survival. Various other tribes occupied their own spaces, each with unspoken rules and expectations. Maya realized she was witnessing humanity's instinctive pack behavior, the same social patterns that had helped their species survive and eventually dominate the galaxy. These teenagers were unconsciously preparing for adult responsibilities through simulated conflicts and alliances. Their battles might seem trivial compared to interstellar warfare, but the underlying dynamics were surprisingly familiar. A boy with dark hair and intelligent eyes approached her desk. Unlike Jessica's calculated friendliness, his demeanor seemed genuinely curious rather than strategic. "You look like you're analyzing us," he said with a slight smile. "I'm David Kim. I sit behind you in this class." Maya studied him for a moment. His body language suggested confidence without aggression, intelligence without arrogance. In military terms, he would make a good squad mate. "Maya Chen," she replied. "And you're right. I am analyzing." David laughed, apparently delighted by her honesty. Most people wouldn't admit that. "What's your assessment so far?" Maya considered her answer carefully. Complex social structure with multiple competing factions. Clear alpha personalities in each group. Surprisingly sophisticated alliance networks for such a small population. David's eyebrows rose. "That's either really insightful or really weird. I can't decide which." "Probably both," Maya admitted. As the bell rang for the next class, Maya gathered her materials and prepared to navigate another battlefield. This one might not involve plasma weapons or alien enemies, but she was beginning to understand that survival would require different skills than those the military had taught her. These teenagers fought with words, rumors, and social positioning rather than bullets and bombs. The war might be over, but Maya Chen was still a soldier. She would adapt, learn, and overcome, just as she always had. High school was simply another mission, and Maya had never failed a mission yet. The cafeteria assault began at exactly 12:15 p.m. on Maya's third day at Jefferson High. She had been studying the social battlefield, mapping territories and identifying key players when the first verbal salvo was fired. "Look what we have here," announced Brad Connors, the school's alpha predator. He stood 6 feet tall with the kind of artificial confidence that came from never facing real consequences. His entourage of followers arranged themselves behind him like a military formation, though they had no idea what actual military discipline looked like. Maya sat alone at a corner table, methodically consuming nutrition rather than enjoying lunch. Her enhanced metabolism required precise caloric intake, but the food here was designed for pleasure rather than optimal performance. She looked up as Brad's shadow fell across her table, automatically cataloging potential threats and escape routes. "You're sitting in my spot," Brad continued, his voice carrying that particular tone bullies use to establish dominance. Maya had heard similar inflections from Zephyrian interrogators, though they had been far more creative with their intimidation techniques. Maya's cybernetic eye performed a rapid threat assessment. Brad was physically impressive by civilian standards but completely untrained. His stance was all show with no substance. His followers were even less capable, their courage borrowed from their leader's presence. In military terms, this was a paper tiger operation designed to intimidate rather than engage in actual combat. "I see no name or territorial marker," Maya replied calmly, continuing to eat. Standard protocol would be first come, first served for undesignated positions. Brad's face reddened at her casual dismissal. Maya recognized the expression from enemy commanders who had underestimated human tactical capabilities. Anger made people stupid, and stupid enemies were the easiest to defeat. "Listen here, freak," Brad snarled, leaning forward to invade Maya's personal space. "I don't know how things worked at your old school, but here we have a system. New kids show respect or they get taught respect." Maya set down her fork with deliberate precision. Her enhanced reflexes could have ended this confrontation in 12 different ways, all of them permanent. But she was operating under civilian rules of engagement now, which severely limited her tactical options. David Kim appeared at the edge of the confrontation, his face showing genuine concern. "Hey Brad, maybe we should all just calm down. She's new. Probably doesn't know about the seating arrangements. Stay out of this. Kim, Brad snapped without taking his eyes off Maya. This is between me and the transfer student. Maya stood slowly, her movements controlled and precise. She was shorter than Brad, but something in her posture made him take an unconscious step backward. Years of commanding respect from battle-hardened soldiers had given her a presence that transcended physical size. You want to teach me respect? Maya said quietly. Interesting concept. In my experience, respect is earned through competence and courage under pressure. What have you done to earn mine? The cafeteria had gone silent around them. Students sensed drama unfolding and gathered to witness the spectacle. Maya noted their positions and expressions, filing away information about pack dynamics and social hierarchies. These teenagers craved conflict, but only as entertainment, not as the life-defining struggle she knew it could become. Brad puffed up his chest, playing to his audience. I'm the captain of the football team. I've been at this school for 4 years. I know everyone and everyone knows me. That's what I've done. Maya nodded thoughtfully. Football. A territorial conflict simulation with clear rules and definite victory conditions, useful for developing teamwork and strategic thinking. How many enemy casualties have you inflicted during your campaigns? What? Brad looked confused by the question. Deaths. How many opponents have you killed in combat? Maya asked with genuine curiosity. The crowd of students shifted uncomfortably. Several people laughed nervously, thinking Maya was making some kind of joke. Brad's confidence wavered as he tried to process the question. It's a game, Brad said finally. Nobody dies in football. Then your victories are meaningless, Maya concluded. Simulated conflict without real stakes teaches nothing about actual leadership or courage. Your experience is fundamentally irrelevant to any serious discussion of respect or authority. Brad's face went from red to purple. You think you're better than everyone else, don't you? Some kind of tough girl because you moved around a lot? Maya considered the question seriously. Was she better than these people? By what metrics? She could kill every person in this room before security arrived. She had tactical knowledge that could revolutionize their society. She had faced horrors that would break their minds and emerged victorious, but she could not navigate their social structures or understand their values. I think we measure strength differently, Maya said finally. Your metrics are foreign to me. Jessica pushed through the crowd, her social antennae detecting an opportunity to insert herself into the drama. Brad, why don't you just leave her alone? She's not bothering anyone. This isn't about you, Jessica, Brad snapped. But his attention split between Maya and his audience. Maya recognized the tactical error immediately. Divided focus was how good soldiers died in stupid ways. A teacher appeared at the edge of the gathering. Drawn by the unusual silence, Mr. Rodriguez. The vice principal had the bearing of a former military man. Maya noted his posture and movement patterns, recognizing a fellow veteran beneath the civilian facade. Is there a problem here? Mr. Rodriguez asked, his voice carrying quiet authority. No problem, Maya said immediately. Student was explaining local social protocols. Educational exchange complete. Brad looked frustrated by her formal response but couldn't articulate why. The crowd began to disperse as the threat of adult intervention removed the entertainment value. Maya gathered her tray and prepared to leave, mission parameters unchanged. This isn't over, Brad called after her, playing to the remaining audience members. Maya paused and turned back to face him. For just a moment her mask slipped. The look she gave him carried the weight of a dozen battlefields and 100 dead enemies. Brad saw something in her eyes that made his bravado crumble. Some predatory intelligence that recognized him as prey. Yes, Maya said quietly. It is. As she walked away, conversation slowly resumed around the cafeteria. David Kim caught up with her at the disposal station, his expression thoughtful rather than alarmed. That was either the coolest or the most terrifying thing I've ever seen, he said. Brad's been the king of this place since sophomore year. Nobody talks to him like that. Maya dumped her tray with military efficiency. Hierarchies based on intimidation rather than competence are inherently unstable. He rules through fear, which means he's actually afraid. Afraid people make poor leaders. You sound like you've thought about this before. Maya looked at him with something approaching respect. David was observant, analytical, and brave enough to approach her despite the social risks. These were valuable qualities in any unit. Leadership theory is applicable across multiple contexts. she said carefully. Same principles, different battlefield. David grinned. I have a feeling high school just got a lot more interesting. As they walked toward their next classes, Maya reflected on the encounter. She had avoided violence and gathered valuable intelligence about the school's power structure. Brad would be a continuing problem, but his authority was based on perception rather than reality. Once enough people saw through his facade, his influence would collapse. Maya had toppled governments using similar principles. High school would not be significantly more challenging. The real question was whether she could learn to care about these trivial conflicts, or if she would always see them as pale shadows of real warfare. These students played at being adults while she had been forced to become one under the worst possible circumstances. Perhaps that was the true mission here. Not to become normal, but to remember what normal looked like and why it was worth protecting. Maya's cover began unraveling during chemistry class on Friday afternoon. Dr. Harrison was demonstrating molecular bonding when Maya automatically corrected his explanation of explosive compound formation. The words escaped before she could stop them. Technical knowledge that no 17-year-old civilian should possess. Actually, the thermal expansion coefficient you mentioned would cause premature detonation, Maya said, then immediately realized her mistake. I mean, theoretically. From what I've read, Dr. Harrison, a former aerospace engineer, looked at her with sharp interest. That's remarkably advanced knowledge for a high school student. Where exactly did you encounter theoretical explosives chemistry? Maya felt the attention of her classmates focusing on her like targeting lasers. David Kim raised an eyebrow from the next lab station, while Jessica leaned forward with obvious curiosity. Even Brad Connors, who had been sulking since the cafeteria incident, seemed intrigued. Internet research, Maya said carefully. I find chemistry applications interesting. It was a weak cover story, and Dr. Harrison's expression suggested he wasn't buying it. Maya had made similar mistakes during her first week, displaying knowledge that exceeded normal educational parameters. Her understanding of ballistics during physics class, her ability to identify satellite tracking patterns during astronomy club, her unconscious use of military terminology during history discussions. She was failing at the most basic requirement of deep cover operations, blending in with the local population. After class, David cornered her in the hallway with that direct approach she was beginning to appreciate. Unlike the other students, he didn't engage in the elaborate social dancing that seemed to consume most teenage interactions. Okay, Maya, what's your deal? He asked without preamble. You know things that don't make sense for someone our age. You talk like you've been in the military. You move like you're expecting attacks. And yesterday I saw you count every exit in the library while memorizing everyone's position. Maya's enhanced reflexes kicked in, analyzing David's body language and vocal patterns for signs of deception or threat. But his curiosity seemed genuine rather than hostile. More concerning was his obvious intelligence and observational skills. David Kim was dangerous precisely because he paid attention. Paranoid personality trait, Maya said, using a standard deflection technique. Military bases can be stressful environments for children. David shook his head. Nice try, but I've known actual military kids. They're cautious, sure, but they don't have your specific skill set. You're something else entirely. Before Maya could respond, the fire alarm began wailing throughout the building. Students around them groaned and complained about another drill interrupting their day. Maya's training immediately kicked into high gear as her enhanced senses analyzed the situation. The alarm pattern was wrong. Standard fire drills used a steady tone, but this was the rapid pulse pattern indicating actual emergency. Her cybernetic nose detected trace amounts of smoke from the eastern wing, and her enhanced hearing picked up the distant sound of breaking glass. This was not a drill. Everyone needs to evacuate immediately, Maya announced, her voice carrying command authority that made nearby students stop and stare. David frowned. It's just a fire drill. We've had 3 this month already. Negative. Actual fire, eastern wing, approximately 200 meters from our current position. Smoke density increasing rapidly. Maya's tactical assessment mode engaged automatically. Primary exits will be blocked by evacuation traffic. Alternative routes required. She was already moving before she finished speaking, heading toward the less used stairwell at the building's north end. David followed, trust overriding confusion. How can you possibly know all that? He demanded as they walked quickly through corridors that were starting to fill with confused students following standard evacuation procedures. Maya paused at a window overlooking the eastern wing. Smoke was indeed billowing from several classroom windows, and she could see the orange glow of actual flames. The main exits were already clogged with students moving too slowly for the severity of the situation. "Experience," she said grimly, then made a command decision that violated her cover, but might save lives. "David, I need you to trust me and do exactly what I say." "Lives depend on it," something in her tone convinced him. David nodded without further questions. "Go to the main office. Tell them to call emergency services and report structure fire with potential civilian casualties. Specify that Eastern Wing classrooms are compromised and may require ladder truck access for upper floor evacuation. Tell them someone with emergency management experience is coordinating alternative evacuation routes. Can you remember that?" David nodded again, his face serious. "Emergency services, structure fire, civilian casualties, Eastern Wing compromised, ladder truck access, alternative evacuation routes." "Got it, but what are you going to do?" Maya was already planning movement through the building's layout, identifying students who would need assistance and calculating optimal traffic flow patterns. "What I was trained to do." She moved through the school with purposeful efficiency, her command presence causing confused students to automatically follow her directions. Maya organized impromptu evacuation groups, identified students with mobility issues who would need assistance, and cleared alternative routes that weren't part of standard drill procedures. When she found 3 freshmen trapped on the second floor of the Eastern Wing, their usual exit blocked by smoke, Maya didn't hesitate. She led them through maintenance corridors she had memorized during her first week, areas that normal students didn't even know existed. "How do you know about these passages?" asked one of the trapped students as Maya guided them to safety. "Reconnaissance," Maya replied automatically, then caught herself. "I explore buildings when I'm bored." By the time the fire department arrived, Maya had successfully evacuated an additional 47 students through alternative routes, identified the location of 2 minor injuries, and provided emergency responders with detailed intelligence about the building's layout and the fire's probable spread pattern. Fire Chief Martinez looked at her with professional appreciation. "You did good work here, kid. Where did you learn emergency management procedures?" Maya's cover story about internet research was becoming increasingly inadequate. "Family training," she said carefully. "Military emergency preparedness." The fire was contained before it could spread beyond the Eastern Wing, and investigation revealed that faulty electrical wiring had sparked the blaze in an empty classroom. No serious injuries occurred, though several students were treated for minor smoke inhalation. As students gathered in the parking lot waiting for the all-clear, Maya found herself surrounded by classmates asking questions she couldn't answer without revealing her true background. David Kim stood nearby, his expression thoughtful rather than suspicious. "That was incredible," Jessica gushed. "You were like totally in control of everything. How did you know what to do?" "Basic emergency procedures," Maya said, wishing she could disappear into the crowd. Brad Connors approached with several of his football teammates. His usual arrogance was replaced by something approaching respect. "You saved those freshmen," he said simply. "Thompson's little brother was one of them. He said you knew exactly where to go like you'd done it before." Maya met his gaze steadily. "Anyone would have helped." "No," Brad said slowly. "Anyone would have panicked or followed the crowd. You took charge like you were born to it." "That's not normal." The growing circle of students nodded in agreement. Maya realized that her actions during the emergency had fundamentally changed her position in the school's social hierarchy. She was no longer the mysterious transfer student, but someone who had proven herself under pressure. The problem was that proving herself required revealing capabilities that raised uncomfortable questions about her background. Maya understood that her cover was probably blown beyond repair, but she found herself caring less about mission parameters than about the safety of the people around her. These students might play at adult conflicts, but they were still just children. Children who deserved protection, even if they didn't realize how dangerous their world really was, or how many people had died to keep them safe. As the fire trucks began packing up and students prepared to return to classes, Maya made a tactical decision. She couldn't maintain perfect cover while also fulfilling her protective instincts. She would have to find a balance between revealing enough to be effective and concealing enough to avoid compromising her identity. David Kim appeared at her shoulder as the crowd began to disperse. "So," he said quietly, When are you going to tell me who you really are? Maya looked at him for a long moment, then smiled for the first time since arriving at Jefferson High. When you're ready to handle the answer. David Kim cornered Maya in the school library exactly 1 week after the fire incident. She had been researching civilian social integration protocols, trying to understand how normal teenagers were supposed to behave, when he slid into the chair across from her with the determined expression she was learning to recognize. I've been thinking about what you said. David began without preamble, about being ready to handle the answer. I think I am. Maya looked up from her research materials, noting that David had chosen a table in the library's most secluded corner. Smart tactical positioning for a sensitive conversation. She was beginning to respect his instincts even more. That's a dangerous assumption, Maya replied carefully. Some answers change everything. David leaned forward, lowering his voice. Maya, I've watched you for 2 weeks. You know things that don't make sense. You move like a predator pretending to be prey. You took command during an emergency like you'd done it 1,000 times before. Either you're the most interesting fake teenager in history, or you're exactly what you appear to be, but with a background that nobody talks about. Maya's enhanced senses detected no surveillance devices in their immediate area, and her tactical assessment indicated that David posed no immediate threat. But sharing classified information with a civilian was a violation of multiple regulations, even if those regulations seemed increasingly irrelevant to her current situation. Hypothetically, Maya said slowly, what would you do if someone told you they weren't exactly what they seemed to be? Hypothetically? David smiled. I'd probably ask them what they needed from me and how I could help. The simple honesty of his response hit Maya harder than she expected. In 3 years of warfare, she had worked with soldiers who would die for their comrades and officers who would sacrifice anything for victory. But David's offer of support came without any understanding of what he might be committing to, based purely on trust and friendship. Maya made a decision that would have horrified her military handlers. David, if I tell you something that you'll never be able to forget, something that will change how you see the world forever, will you promise me that you won't share it with anyone else? David's expression grew serious. I promise. Maya took a deep breath and activated her cybernetic eye's privacy mode, which would scramble any recording devices in the immediate area. My name is Maya Chen, Sergeant First Class 3rd Reconnaissance Battalion, Interstellar Defense Force. I've served 3 tours of active duty in the Zephyrian War across 12 different worlds. I've been decorated for valor 4 times and have 47 confirmed enemy kills. The war ended 6 months ago, and I'm here as part of a military reintegration program designed to help child soldiers adapt to civilian life. David stared at her for a full 30 seconds, his face cycling through disbelief, shock, and finally acceptance. Maya watched him process the information, noting the intelligence behind his eyes as he fitted the pieces together. The Zephyrian War, David said finally. I remember the news reports. The alien alliance that attacked the outer colonies. They said it lasted 3 years and that humanity won through superior tactics and individual heroism. They never mentioned child soldiers. Official reports rarely include inconvenient details, Maya replied. Children adapt faster to combat conditions and recover more quickly from psychological trauma. We were effective. How young? David asked quietly. I enlisted at 14. First combat deployment at 15. I've been fighting aliens longer than I've been a civilian. David ran his hands through his hair, clearly struggling with the implications. That's insane. You're 17 now, which means you've spent most of your teenage years in actual war zones while the rest of us worried about homework and social media. Different worlds, different problems, Maya said simply. But why are you here? Why high school instead of continued military service? Maya considered how much to reveal. The military psychiatrists believe that exposure to normal civilian life will help former child soldiers develop healthy social relationships and reduce the risk of long-term psychological complications. Standard integration protocol requires completion of basic education in a typical environment. David laughed, though there was no humor in it. They sent a decorated war veteran to learn algebra and worry about prom dates. That's either the most optimistic or the most naive thing I've ever heard. Both, Maya agreed. Though I think the real purpose is to determine whether soldiers like me can successfully integrate into the society we fought to protect, or if we're too damaged to function in peacetime. And what do you think? Maya looked around the library, watching students stress about research papers and relationship drama. 2 weeks ago, she would have dismissed their concerns as trivial. Now she was beginning to understand that the ability to care about small things was a luxury that required protection. I think the mission parameters are more complex than originally briefed, she said finally. But I'm adapting, David nodded slowly. Okay, wow, this explains so much about you. The way you handled the fire, how you talked to Brad, why you seem to analyze everything like it's a potential threat. You're not pretending to be a soldier, you're pretending to be a normal kid. Correct assessment. And you're trusting me with this because Maya studied his face looking for signs of fear or rejection, but finding only curiosity and concern, because you asked the right questions and offered help before knowing what you were volunteering for. Those are qualities I learned to value in combat. What can I do to help? The question surprised Maya with its directness. I'm not sure. The integration protocols don't include guidance for managing civilian friendships. I don't have experience with normal social relationships. David grinned, and for the first time since arriving at Jefferson High, Maya saw genuine warmth directed at her. Lucky for you, I'm not exactly normal either. I'm the weird kid who analyzes social dynamics for fun and reads military history instead of watching sports. We can figure this out together. Together, Maya repeated, testing the word. In military contexts, partnerships were based on mission requirements and tactical advantages. This was different. David was offering alliance based purely on personal connection, so what's it like? David asked. Fighting aliens, I mean. The news reports made it sound heroic and clean, but I'm guessing the reality was different. Maya's expression darkened as memories surfaced unbidden. War is never clean. The Zephyrians were ruthless opponents who showed no mercy to civilian populations. We responded in kind. Heroes and villains are concepts created by people who weren't there. Do you regret it? Fighting, I mean. Maya considered the question seriously. I regret that it was necessary. I regret the friends I lost and the enemies I had to kill. But I don't regret protecting humanity from extinction. The Zephyrians would have wiped out every human colony if we hadn't stopped them. David absorbed this information quietly. When he spoke again, his voice carried new respect. And now you're stuck trying to pretend that chemistry homework and cafeteria politics matter as much as saving the human race. The psychiatrists would say that learning to value small concerns is part of psychological healing. What do you say? Maya looked out the library window at students enjoying their lunch break, laughing and arguing about things that seemed impossibly trivial. Yet their ability to find meaning in those trivial concerns was exactly what she had fought to preserve. I say maybe caring about small things is what makes life worth protecting, she said finally, but I'm still learning how to do it. David reached across the table and touched her hand briefly. The gesture was simple and human in a way that made Maya's enhanced systems register confusing emotional data. Well, he said with a smile that transformed his entire face, you've got at least until graduation to figure it out, and you won't have to do it alone. For the first time since arriving at Jefferson High School, Maya Chen began to understand what the military psychiatrists meant by healing. The nightmares began 3 weeks after Maya told David her secret. She woke at 03:47 hours, her enhanced reflexes automatically reaching for weapons that weren't there, cybernetic systems flooding her bloodstream with combat stimulants designed for immediate battlefield response. The phantom screams of dying. Soldiers echoed in her enhanced hearing while her tactical display showed threat assessments for a bedroom that contained nothing more dangerous than homework assignments. Maya sat on the edge of her bed, forcing her breathing into regulation patterns while her systems slowly powered down from combat readiness. The government-provided apartment was secure, comfortable, and completely wrong for someone whose nervous system was calibrated for warfare. Every shadow could hide an enemy sniper. Every sound might herald an attack. Every moment of peace felt like the calm before inevitable violence. She had experienced similar episodes during active duty, but the constant presence of actual threats had given her subconscious mind logical targets for its hypervigilance. Now her enhanced senses detected dangers that didn't exist while ignoring the social landmines that actually mattered in her current environment. The integration program's assigned therapist, Dr. Sarah Martinez, had warned her about adjustment difficulties. Your mind and body have been conditioned for survival in an environment that no longer exists, she had explained during their weekly sessions. Learning to live without constant threat assessment will take time and conscious effort. Maya had nodded politely while thinking that Dr. Martinez had never seen a Scifian plasma rifle reduce a human being to component atoms. The good doctor meant well, but her understanding of trauma came from textbooks rather than experience. At school the next day, Maya found it increasingly difficult to maintain her civilian facade. Every interaction felt like a performance requiring tremendous energy to sustain. David noticed immediately, his observational skills picking up on stress markers that would have been invisible to most people. "Rough night?" he asked during their shared free period, settling into the chair beside her in the mostly empty computer lab. Maya considered lying, but discovered she lacked the energy for additional deception. Combat dreams. Standard readjustment symptom according to the psychological evaluation protocols. David frowned with genuine concern. How often? Increasing frequency. 3 times this week. Maya rubbed her temples, noting the slight tremor in her hands that indicated her enhanced systems were running stress diagnostics. My threat assessment protocols are malfunctioning in low-stimulus environments. English translation? Maya managed a tired smile. My brain keeps looking for enemies that aren't there while missing social problems that actually matter. As if summoned by her words, Brad Connors appeared in the doorway of the computer lab with 2 of his teammates. Maya's tactical assessment immediately kicked in, noting their aggressive posture and coordinated positioning. Her enhanced hearing detected elevated heart rates and stress hormones, indicating preparation for confrontation. Well, Brad announced loudly enough to attract attention from other students in the hallway. Look who thinks they're too good to sit with normal people anymore. Maya sighed internally. She had been avoiding the cafeteria since her stress levels increased, preferring to eat alone in quiet spaces that didn't trigger her hypervigilance responses. Apparently, this had been interpreted as antisocial behavior, rather than necessary psychological maintenance. Problem, Brad? David asked, positioning himself slightly in front of Maya in an unconscious protective gesture that her combat training noted and appreciated. Yeah. There's a problem, Brad continued, stepping into the computer lab with his backup close behind. Princess here thinks she's better than everyone else. Too special to eat lunch with the rest of us peasants. Maya felt her enhanced systems beginning to activate, combat protocols engaging as her subconscious classified the situation as a potential threat. She forced herself to remain seated, knowing that her reflexes could seriously injure these untrained teenagers if her control slipped. Conflict avoidance is not a superiority demonstration, Maya said carefully, monitoring her own stress indicators. Different people have different social energy requirements. Brad's face reddened at her formal response. There you go again with the weird robot talk. What is wrong with you? The question triggered an unexpected emotional response that caught Maya completely off guard. What was wrong with her? She had been designed and trained to be humanity's perfect weapon, shaped by necessity into something that could face cosmic horrors and emerge victorious. But that same conditioning made her fundamentally incompatible with the peaceful world she had fought to preserve. Maya stood slowly, her movements precise and controlled despite the emotional turbulence her systems were detecting. Brad took an unconscious step backward as something predatory flickered behind her eyes. What's wrong with me? Maya said quietly, is that I spent 3 years watching friends die while preventing the extinction of human civilization. What's wrong with me is that I have 47 confirmed kills and enough combat decorations to fill a wall, but I can't figure out how to have a normal conversation about weekend plans. What's wrong with me is that every instinct I possess is screaming that you're a threat that needs to be neutralized, and the only thing stopping me is a promise I made to people who think homework assignments are adequate preparation for the real world. The computer lab fell completely silent. Brad's bravado evaporated as Maya's words sank in, replaced by something approaching fear. His teammates shifted nervously, suddenly aware that they had wandered into territory far beyond typical high school confrontations. David stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. Maya, maybe we should take a walk. Maya blinked, her enhanced systems registering the concern in David's voice and the fear radiating from Brad's group. She had allowed her emotional regulation to slip, revealing more than was tactically wise, but the relief of dropping her mask even briefly was overwhelming. Yeah, she said softly, that would be good. As they left the computer lab, Maya heard Brad's voice behind them, confusion and uncertainty replacing his usual arrogance. What the hell was she talking about? David guided Maya to an empty courtyard where they could speak privately. She sat on a concrete bench, suddenly feeling exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with physical fatigue. That was probably not optimal for maintaining cover, Maya said after several minutes of silence. Probably not, David agreed. But it was honest. And maybe honesty is more important than perfect cover stories. Maya looked at him with something approaching wonder. Most people would be afraid of me. Now, most people haven't spent weeks watching you, struggle to understand why anyone cares about homecoming dances while trying to protect them from dangers they can't even imagine. David sat beside her on the bench. You're not scary, Maya, you're heartbreaking. The word hit her like a physical blow. Maya had been called many things during her military service. Courageous, deadly, efficient, ruthless. But heartbreaking was not a classification she had encountered before. I don't understand, she said honestly. David's expression was gentle, but sad. You gave up your childhood to save the world, and now you're trying to learn how to be the kid you never got to be. That's not wrong, Maya. That's tragic. Maya felt something inside her chest tighten, an emotional response that her enhanced systems couldn't categorize or regulate. For 3 years, she had focused on mission objectives and tactical necessities. Personal feelings were luxury items that could get soldiers killed. But here, in this peaceful courtyard, surrounded by the trivial concerns of normal teenagers, she finally began to understand what she had sacrificed. The psychiatrists say I can learn to be normal, Maya said quietly. Maybe, David replied. Or maybe normal is overrated. Maybe what matters is learning to be yourself in a world that doesn't require you to be a weapon anymore. Maya considered this perspective. She had spent so much energy trying to become something she wasn't that she had never considered the possibility of accepting what she was, while learning to function in peacetime. David, she said finally, I don't know how to be anything other than a soldier. Then maybe, David suggested with a small smile, you should try being a soldier who's learning to care about small things. Someone who protects people not because it's her mission, but because she chooses to. As the afternoon sun filtered through the courtyard trees, Maya Chen began to understand that integration didn't mean erasing her past. It meant finding a way to honor both the warrior she had been and the person she might become. The nightmares might continue and the adjustment would be difficult, but she was no longer fighting alone. The phone call came at 02:30 hours on a Tuesday morning, jolting Maya from the deepest sleep she had experienced since beginning the integration program. Her enhanced reflexes brought her to full alertness before the second ring, tactical systems analyzing the unusual timing and potential threat implications. Sergeant Chen, she answered automatically, then caught herself. Hello? Maya, it's David. His voice carried stress markers that immediately triggered her protective instincts. I need your help. Something's happened. Maya was already reaching for clothes before David finished speaking. Location and nature of emergency? It's my sister Emma, she's missing. She went to a party tonight and never came home. My parents called the police, but they say they can't do anything for 24 hours because she's 17 and might have just stayed over somewhere. Maya's enhanced systems began processing tactical data. Missing person, female teenager, potentially dangerous situation. Her military training immediately categorized this as a search and rescue operation requiring immediate response. Transmission. Location of last known contact and any available intelligence. Regarding the event she attended, Maya instructed, slipping into combat communication protocols without conscious thought. Maya, slow down. I need you to be my friend right now, not a soldier. The word stopped her cold. Maya forced herself to recalibrate, remembering that civilian emergencies required different approaches than military operations. But her protective instincts were fully engaged, and David's sister represented a mission objective that transcended normal social parameters. Sorry, Maya said, moderating her tone. Where was the party and what time was Emma supposed to be home? David provided the details while Maya dressed and gathered equipment. The party was at a house in the wealthy district across town, hosted by seniors from a rival high school. Emma had promised to be home by midnight but hadn't responded to calls or texts since 11 p.m. I'll meet you at your house in 15 minutes, Maya said, calculating travel time and optimal routes. Do you have transportation? My dad's car. But Maya, what can we do that the police can't? Maya paused in her preparations. What could they do? Officially nothing. Two teenagers had no authority to investigate missing persons cases or enter private property without permission. But Maya possessed skills and technologies that local law enforcement lacked, capabilities that could mean the difference between finding Emma safely and waiting for a tragedy to unfold. We can do things the police can't or won't do yet, Maya said carefully. Trust me. She arrived at David's house to find his entire family in crisis mode. David's parents, Dr. Kim and Mrs. Kim, looked like they had aged years in a single night. Emma's absence had transformed their comfortable suburban home into a command center of anxiety and desperate phone calls. David says you might be able to help, Dr. Kim said, grasping at any hope available. Do you have any ideas about where Emma might be? Maya assessed the situation rapidly. Two terrified parents, one worried brother, and a missing teenager who could be anywhere in a city of 2 million people. Standard search protocols would require extensive resources and time they might not have. I need all available information about Emma's friends. Recent communications and any potential social conflicts, Maya said, her military mindset automatically prioritizing intelligence gathering. Also, does she have any tracking applications on her phone? Mrs. Kim handed over Emma's laptop while Dr. Kim provided access to the family's shared phone plan account. Maya's enhanced cybernetic capabilities allowed her to process digital information far faster than normal human analysis, though she had to be careful not to display abilities that would raise uncomfortable questions. Within minutes, Maya had constructed a comprehensive profile of Emma's social network and recent activities. Her enhanced pattern recognition detected several concerning data points that suggested Emma might be in genuine danger rather than simply staying out late. David, I need to speak with you privately, Maya said, recognizing information that would unnecessarily alarm his parents. They stepped onto the back porch where Maya shared her findings. Emma's phone stopped transmitting location data at 11:47 p.m., which suggests either deliberate deactivation or complete power loss. Her last social media activity shows messages with someone identified as Tyler M., who doesn't appear in any of her established friend networks. The conversation pattern indicates she agreed to leave the party with this individual. David's face paled. Leave with someone she just met? That's not like Emma at all. She's cautious about things like that. Maya's threat assessment algorithms were generating increasingly concerning probability matrices. Unknown male, isolated teenage female, communication blackout, deviation from established behavioral patterns. Every indicator suggested potential abduction or worse. We need to locate this Tyler individual and determine Emma's current status, Maya said, slipping back into military communication patterns. Standard police procedures won't be sufficient for time-critical extraction scenarios. Maya, you're doing it again. The soldier thing. Maya forced herself to breathe deeply and recalibrate her approach. Sorry. I mean, we need to find this Tyler guy and figure out where Emma is fast. They returned inside where Maya approached Dr. Kim with carefully modulated civilian language. I found some information that might help. Emma was communicating with someone new tonight, and her phone stopped working around the time she was supposed to come home. I think we should try to find this person. Dr. Kim looked at Maya with renewed hope and curiosity. How did you figure all that out so quickly? I'm good with computers, Maya said, which was technically true if incomplete. Using resources available through her military access codes, Maya traced Tyler M.'s digital footprint to a real identity. Tyler Morrison, 19 years old, with a criminal record including charges of assault and drug possession. His current address was registered to an apartment complex known for housing transient populations and illegal activities. Maya felt her combat systems engaging as the threat level escalated. Emma Kim was potentially in the hands of a dangerous individual with a history of violence, and every minute of delay reduced the probability of successful rescue. We need to contact law enforcement immediately, Maya told David's parents. I found the person Emma left with, and he has a criminal background that suggests she might be in real danger. While Dr. Kim called the police with updated information, Maya pulled David aside for tactical planning. The police response time to Tyler Morrison's address will be at least 30 minutes, assuming they treat this as high priority. If Emma is being held against her will, that could be too long. What are you suggesting? Maya looked at her friend's worried face and made a decision that violated multiple regulations and integration protocols. I'm suggesting that we conduct preliminary reconnaissance while the police organize their response. Two teenagers checking on a friend won't trigger the same defensive responses as official law enforcement. David stared at her. You want to go there ourselves? What if this Tyler guy is dangerous? Maya's expression grew cold with predatory calculation. Then he'll discover that taking Emma Kim was the worst mistake of his criminal career. For the first time since meeting her, David saw the soldier that Maya had been trained to be. The casual teenager disappeared, replaced by something harder and infinitely more dangerous. He realized that Tyler Morrison had unknowingly declared war on someone who had spent 3 years perfecting the art of violence. Okay, David said quietly. Let's go get my sister back. As they prepared to leave, Maya felt the familiar clarity of mission focus washing over her enhanced systems. Emma Kim was a civilian under threat, which made her protection a legitimate military objective. Maya might be struggling with integration protocols and social dynamics, but this was familiar territory. She was a soldier again, and soldiers brought their people home. Maya approached Tyler Morrison's apartment building with the systematic precision of a combat veteran conducting urban reconnaissance. Her enhanced senses mapped the structure's layout, identified security weaknesses, and cataloged potential escape routes while David followed her lead with nervous determination. Third floor, apartment 3B, Maya whispered, noting the broken exterior lighting that would provide concealment for their approach. Single stairwell access, fire escape on the east side, multiple sight lines from adjacent buildings. David looked at her with a mixture of admiration and concern. You're scary when you do that. Good, Maya replied grimly. Scary keeps people alive. They climbed the external fire escape to avoid the main entrance, Maya's enhanced agility making the ascent effortless, while David struggled to keep pace. At the third-floor landing, Maya paused to analyze audio signatures from apartment 3B. Her cybernetic hearing detected 2 distinct heartbeats inside the unit, one elevated suggesting stress or fear, the other calm and steady. Male voices, at least one female voice that could be Emma. Maya's facial recognition software identified Tyler Morrison through the window, confirming they had located the correct target. Emma's inside, Maya reported quietly. At least one adult male, possibly others. Female voice patterns consistent with distress. David started toward the door, but Maya caught his arm. Negative. Tactical assessment first. Maya's enhanced vision allowed her to observe the apartment's interior through the partially open window. Emma Kim sat on a couch, apparently unharmed but clearly uncomfortable. Tyler Morrison and another male were present, their body language suggesting they were under the influence of alcohol or drugs. Empty bottles and suspicious white powder confirmed Maya's assessment of illegal substances. 2 targets, 1 primary objective, Maya whispered. Emma appears physically unharmed but is being held against her will. Both subjects are intoxicated, which reduces their combat effectiveness but increases unpredictability. Combat effectiveness? David hissed. Maya, we're not storming a bunker. We're trying to get my sister back safely. Maya forced herself to recalibrate, remembering that civilian rescue operations required different protocols than military extractions. But her enhanced systems were already calculating optimal approaches for neutralizing threats and securing the objective. You're right, Maya said, though her tactical mind continued running combat scenarios. We call for help and wait for police response. David was already dialing 911 when they heard Emma's voice rise in distress from inside the apartment. Through the window, Maya saw Tyler Morrison grabbing Emma's arm aggressively while she tried to pull away. Maya's combat protocols engaged instantly, overriding civilian considerations. Emma Kim was under immediate threat, which made this an active rescue scenario requiring immediate intervention. Call for emergency backup, Maya instructed David, then moved toward the apartment door with lethal purpose. Maya, wait, David called, but she was already in motion. Maya tested the door handle and found it unlocked, confirming that Tyler Morrison's operational security was as poor as his judgment. She entered the apartment with fluid silence, her enhanced reflexes allowing her to cross the living room before either man noticed her presence. Let her go, Maya said quietly, her voice carrying the kind of calm authority that made combat veterans take notice. Tyler Morrison spun around, his drug-clouded reflexes slow and clumsy. He was bigger than Maya by 6 inches and 60 pounds, but size meant nothing to someone who had fought alien warriors bred for physical superiority. "Who the hell are you?" Tyler demanded, still gripping Emma's arm. "Get out of my apartment before I call the cops." Maya's enhanced vision analyzed his stance, muscle tension, and reaction time. Civilian threat level: minimal. Combat experience: none. Optimal neutralization strategy: non-lethal but decisive. "Emma," Maya said without taking her eyes off Tyler, "are you injured?" "No," Emma replied, her voice shaking with relief. "Maya, how did you find me?" "Tactical intelligence and pattern analysis," Maya replied automatically. "David is outside calling for emergency response." "You're safe now," Tyler Morrison laughed, the sound harsh and ugly. "Safe? Little girl, you have no idea what kind of trouble you just walked into." Maya tilted her head slightly, studying Tyler with the same dispassionate interest she might show a laboratory specimen. "Actually, Tyler Morrison, age 19. Criminal history including assault and drug possession. Current violation of multiple statutes, including unlawful detention and substance abuse. You're the one who doesn't understand the situation." Tyler's face reddened with anger and confusion. "How do you know my name?" "Intelligence gathering is a fundamental military skill," Maya replied, "as is threat assessment. You represent a minimal tactical challenge." Tyler's friend, who had been silent throughout the exchange, finally spoke up. "Dude, maybe we should just let them go. This is getting weird." But Tyler's pride and intoxication overrode whatever sense he might have possessed. He shoved Emma aside and stepped toward Maya with clumsy aggression. "Nobody talks to me like that in my own place, especially some skinny little—" Maya moved with inhuman speed, her enhanced reflexes allowing her to neutralize Tyler's threat before he could complete his advance. A precise strike to his solar plexus dropped him to his knees, gasping for breath but otherwise unharmed. His friend immediately raised his hands in surrender, apparently deciding that discretion was the better part of valor. "Emma, exit the building immediately," Maya instructed, maintaining visual contact with both potential threats. "David is waiting at the fire escape." Emma didn't need to be told twice. She ran for the door while Maya kept Tyler and his friend under control through sheer presence, rather than additional violence. Tyler was still struggling to breathe, his eyes wide with shock and fear. "What are you?" Tyler gasped. Maya considered the question seriously. What was she? A soldier learning to be human, or a human who had been transformed into something else entirely? The answer seemed less important than the mission objective. "I'm someone who protects people," Maya said finally. "Remember that if you're ever tempted to hurt someone again." Sirens wailed in the distance as police units responded to David's emergency call. Maya backed toward the door, maintaining tactical awareness until she was safely outside the apartment. She found David and Emma on the fire escape, Emma crying with relief while David held his sister protectively. The sight of their reunion triggered an unexpected emotional response in Maya's enhanced systems, something her tactical training couldn't categorize or regulate. "Is she hurt?" Maya asked, conducting a visual assessment for injuries. "Just scared," David replied. "Maya, what you did in there?" That was incredible. Maya felt the adrenaline of combat fading, replaced by the familiar emptiness that followed successful missions. But this time the emptiness was mixed with something else, satisfaction that had nothing to do with military objectives or tactical success. "Emma is safe," Maya said simply. Mission accomplished. Mission? Emma looked between Maya and David with confusion. "Who is she?" David smiled at his sister with obvious affection. "Emma, meet Maya Chen. She's the most dangerous high school student in the city, and also the best friend anyone could ask for." As police units arrived to secure the scene and arrest Tyler Morrison, Maya reflected on the evening's events. She had violated integration protocols, revealed capabilities that would raise questions, and used military skills in a civilian context. According to her psychological evaluation parameters, this represented a failure to adapt to peaceful society. But Emma Kim was safe, and Maya had chosen to protect someone who mattered to David, rather than following regulations designed by people who had never faced real threats. Perhaps that choice represented a different kind of progress toward becoming human. Standing on the fire escape with David and Emma, watching police officers take Tyler Morrison into custody, Maya Chen finally understood what Dr. Martinez meant about integration. It wasn't about becoming normal or forgetting her past. It was about finding ways to use her unique capabilities to protect the people and values that made peace worth preserving. She was still a soldier. But now she was a soldier who had chosen her own mission, keeping her friends safe in a world that was finally free from interstellar war. It wasn't the integration the military had planned for her, but it was the life Maya Chen had decided to build for herself. High school might have been a different kind of battlefield, but Maya had found her place on it. She would graduate in 3 months, but the real lessons had nothing to do with textbooks or standardized tests. She had learned that caring about small things, friendship, family, everyday safety, wasn't a weakness to overcome but a strength worth fighting for. The war was over, but Maya Chen's service to humanity was just beginning.